order to make sure that anyone is able to view from the public, we stream these live. So anyone is able to do that. The last thing I need to do here is just read through the hearing script. This will cover the procedure of the hearing, and then we'll jump right into it. So this is the November 2nd, 2022 session of the Zoning Hearing Examiner docket. My name is David Sturkey. I'm the Zoning Hearing Examiner for the City of Cincinnati. I'll be presiding over this hearing. The case before us today is case number ZHUV220014. The purpose of this hearing is to allow applicants and opposing parties to testify and to offer and refute evidence and testimony. This hearing will follow the rules found in the zoning code and the supplemental rules of the Zoning Hearing Examiner. All testimony and evidence that an applicant or an opposing party wishes to offer must be presented at this hearing. Let's see. The hearing will proceed as follows. The applicant, the applicant's attorney, or the applicant's agent will first present the applicant's case. If there were anyone here from the public, they would have an opportunity to present after the applicant had presented its case. I'll give our zoning plans examiner, Trey Sheldon, an opportunity to provide any testimony in addition to his staff report. I'll have some questions along the way. I'll then give you an opportunity to respond to anything Trey has said and make any closing remarks. After all presentations have been made, I will close the hearing. Decisions may be expected within 2 weeks. So for our purposes here today, folks, any or all of you can tell me about the project and some background, why you think I should grant this relief. And like I said, I'll have some questions along the way. I'll let Trey weigh in on this, and then we'll wrap it up. So let's see, I may limit or exclude any testimony that I deem irrelevant or outside the scope of the application being considered. I may interrupt any speaker to ask questions or to make any comments. I may also refuse to consider hearsay testimony. That's generally evidence you want to introduce that consists of statements made by someone who's not present here today. In the event of any technical difficulties with the Zoom technology, I'll do my best to troubleshoot those on the fly, but to the extent there's some defect that prevents us from meaningfully going forward with this hearing, I may continue or postpone the hearing at my discretion. Okay, the last thing I need to do is swear in all of our witnesses. So if you intend on providing any testimony here today, asking any questions, making any comments, doing anything other than just strictly observing here today, then the zoning code requires me to swear you in. So if you believe that is you, I need you to raise your right hand now, and I need everyone to answer out loud. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Who's going to be taking the lead here on the presentation of this application?
You guys can go ahead and explain kind of what happened, Brad and Christy, one of you.
Okay, I will. So we came across a lot that was for sale. My wife contacted the guy, the builder, and we met and went under contract, signed the contract for a new build on January 27th, 2021. The course of the next 19 or 20 months, we had been told that things were moving forward, but there was delays because of COVID, which made sense. But after 20 months of waiting and seeing zero progress, we decided to terminate our relationship with the builder that we had, and sought after a new builder. We're in the process and under contract of purchasing the land. We have purchased the permits and the plans and everything else. So we are just waiting to hopefully get this taken care of so we can start building.
Okay. And it appears that today the relief that you're requesting from me is to allow for the construction of the single family despite not having street frontage. Is that right?
That's correct. Kevin, can you explain that further?
Probably be best if what's the name? What's the guy's name over here?
Trey.
Oh, Trey.
Ray. He would know more of the details from working with originally to the builder we had in place, but
Sure, Trey.
Do you want me to just tee it up? Okay. All right.
yeah.
So basically, this is a series of properties, at least 3 of them contiguous, that were owned by the Wagner family. They're in Madisonville from 1900 until 2016. They own multiple things. I don't know whether they kind of ran it as like a little compound or what, but it included multiple different independent buildings. So it's actually kind of relevant to the overall story as far as the egress here and so on. But They basically owned the subject property as well as a larger single-family dwelling at 5700 Rose Street. That has, if you were to look at my the aerial on my in my staff report, it'll make sense. But 5700 Rose Street to the west, and then 5704 was recently renovated and expanded with an addition to the south. Now it was a lot of record, David, because it had a house on it already, and it technically had deficient street frontage, but it could have had a driveway.
We're talking about the subject property or 57?
No, we're talking about 5704. It's relevant here. Because what essentially has happened is that that and the street, the home to the down to the south, which I'm trying to look at the a house immediately to the, if you were to look at the aerial view, you'd see that multiple of these dwellings here end up inherently needing access over the right of way. It's an unimproved right of way, or if you just want to pull it up in cages, this is a pretty much like where a picture paints 1,000 words.
Is it?
Yep. So if you want to,
Can you all see that?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes.
can you go a little more so I could see that? Okay, the address down there. David, can you see that 5714 down there, that property right there? It has a garage basically that's been there, I mean, for decades and decades, and they've, kind of used this unimproved right of way for their access for their driveway for as long as I could see in aerial photographs going back decades. So what we have here is that all these other lots had frontage, but this 5706, which used to have either a cabin or a kind of a rustic cabin or a barn, a small barn or something on it until some 5 years ago or so. I mean, they've essentially been using this area as a means of egress. But with 5706, it has no street frontage on Rose Street at all. And so that's the purpose of why we're here. Otherwise, this is a landlocked parcel that can essentially never be developed with the only kind of development you could have, which is residential. So it is true, the builder took a very, very long time. I went through explanation after explanation with him, and I even met with Mr. Teeny multiple times, then subsequently with Mr. Geraci on the phone to try to get this thing moving, because these poor folks were just stranded without them moving forward toward a hearing, even though they had my adjudication letter from the builder did from a year and something ago, year and a half ago. So what we ended up doing is proceeding to go through with Department of Transportation, and they did a revocable street privilege, which has been approved by, as in my staff report, it was approved by Tom Klum with City Real Estate, and also signed. It was signed by the Director of the Department of Transportation and Charles Martinez of the Law Department, and that was fully effected. So that's an executed revocable street privilege. Right now, I know that at some point, Nick Edge of Department of Transportation is working on some easements to ensure that, for example, 5714 would continue to have access, right? The 5714 Rose Street would continue to have access over this. And so the other thing that the revocable street privilege did was allow the owner of this property, allow this essentially this unimproved right of way to be paved. Excuse me. So one other thing in the language of it, it allows it to be paved. That will subsequently allow 5704 and 5706 to have either asphalt or concrete driveways leading to the right of way, so that they have egress in and out. Obviously, you can't force 5714 to pave their driveway when they've had a gravel surface for decades. It's non-conforming. So I thought I'd give an overview for all this.
This here will be, is it like this section here will be paved and
Yes,
will become a private right of way?
It will have a revocable street privilege, so it will allow them to pave it and to maintain it, but not own it. It will still be a part of the. It will still be part of the Department of. It will still be city property, Department of Transportation Engineering property, but they're allowing these folks to use it for egress, which obviously 5714 has traditionally, and so is 5704. The issue for the property at 5706 is it doesn't have street frontage at all on Roe Street, but it meets everything else. The lot's compliant, the setbacks are compliant, everything else, meets all zoning requirements. And in the past, in order to remedy this, it's always been the only mechanism for doing that is a use variance.
Gotcha. And
So that's what brings us here today.
gotcha. But what?
Hey,
but
Phil,
isn't,
I'm
isn't it
testing.
actually the width of the
Phil, I'm testifying.
what?
I'm trying to explain to somebody next to me to lower their voice.
Oh,
I'm
gotcha,
trying to
gotcha.
testify.
So, but Trey, to nail down on this a little bit, this public right of way
It's not
doesn't
21
meet
feet.
the requirements for the width.
That's correct. It's not 21 feet in width. And so the way that's been handled in the past by every other zoning plan examiner and by myself on another occasion, we have had sought advice from, I believe from the law department. And they indicated the way to handle that is to run it as a use variance rather than a dimensional variance. It doesn't have access to a street basically. And in order to be a street under zoning, it has to be 21 feet wide. Not the frontage, mind you, of the lot. This is compliant lot width. It's just, it doesn't have frontage on a 21-foot wide street.
Right. And are you aware of the reasoning behind the 21-foot width requirements?
It's simply a definition in the zoning code of what constitutes a street.
But it's not arbitrary, is it? 21 feet? That seems like a pretty specific number.
It is pretty specific. For whatever reason, I believe in the for the planning department, it's for whatever reason 20 feet, and it's something we've had to reconcile in multiple coordinated site review and other review processes because the zoning code makes it so. For us, for example,
Trey, let me ask a more pointed question. First, how wide is it?
I think this is about 12 feet.
12 feet. Okay. So, will emergency vehicles such as fire, ambulance, or police vehicles be able to access 5706 and with some ease or little effort maneuver along this 12-foot right of way?
What I can do is check whether they, I'd have to reduce the screen because it's in full screen share right now, so I can't jump to my permit.
I'll stop share.
If you can for a second, thank you, because I couldn't, you know what I mean? I can't access the screen behind it.
Yeah,
so let me check.
That's based on research I've done in the past. That's why 21 feet is the standard, or 20 feet, because you need to be able to access it for emergency services or utility services. And so, is this public right of way that's being created going to actually be able to accomplish that? And I mean, that could go to anyone if anyone.
Yeah, I'm going to see I'm going to pull up the permit right now. That's what I'm going to do, David, and see if fire signed off on it because it's a new build. David, if you can hear me. Yeah, if you need to put this in the record, I'm going to give you the permit number just so you can put it in your decision if necessary. It's permit 2021 P as in Paul 0 3553. And it was approved by Captain Robert Hart. I believe that he's approved it, and they just need to know that the flush, I'm going to try to see. They're giving conditional approval awaiting fire flow results to know that at least 1,000 gallons per minute at 50 PSI is available from the street. In other words, they could fight a fire from the street. This is not a long enough drive that they would need access. Like if you had a larger development, multifamily or commercial or something. Does that make sense? They're
Yeah.
indicating basically, I mean, I review these permits all the time. So essentially he's indicating they just need to do a test on the hydrant at the street.
When did that conditional approval occur?
He's approved it several times. His conditional approval is on June 9th of 2022. And his original approval was on May 7th of 2021.
Okay. And do we have any indication whether that test has been run? I mean, that's my main concern here is just that that this is safe. And if the fire chief signed off on this, that's great. I mean, I mean,
they won't let it go through. I mean, I don't think they'll let it go through.
Has been satisfied.
Yeah, I will not let it go through unless that condition's been satisfied.
Gotcha. So they won't be able to achieve the permitting on the other end unless that condition is satisfied.
I believe so. Yes, that's correct. That's why he's putting in condition here.
Okay. All right.
That makes sense. And thanks for asking. That's a very practical question, but this has been so long in the tooth that, I mean, it went through the process here. And so and with DOT and fire, there was a lot of discussion of it. And we're just trying to make sure it's all buttoned up and it appears to be. So.
Sure. Let me just, for the record, go through a few more of the standards that the code requires me to go through on these. One is that the property cannot be put to any economically viable use under any of the permitted uses in the zoning district. This sounds like pretty clearly satisfies that condition. Could this lot be put to any other use?
A garden. That's about it.
Okay. Which would not be economically viable.
Well, I don't think they'd pay this amount of money for, and they're under contract for it to do as a single family home. And
That's right.
you would not, that would be totally economically unviable. That would
right.
Be,
and it looks like
silly.
the request stems from a condition that's unique to the property, which is no street frontage, right?
Yes, and these other properties obviously have sort of legal non-conforming or grandfathered access. I mean, it's almost by egress by necessity to put in lawyerly terms. I mean, they this, for example, that property to the south has a garage that's been there since before you and I were born, probably, and they've been driving on this, but they have frontage on Roe Street, so that's why we're here. So
yeah, and this won't adversely affect the rights of any adjacent property owners or residents.
I do not believe so, because I mean, before there was a ramshackle falling down either cabin or barn on the property, and now it's going to be developed with a brand new, a very nice home that, by the way, will not have parking on the side. The garage, it has a 2-car garage. The plans call for a 2-car garage, so it won't even have the effect. If you see the car at the property next door, it's not getting through the zoning code that way. So anybody over to the right or any other properties over here aren't going to see just cars parked there. There's a garage, and to the north is a railroad. There's a railway line, CSX railway line. So certainly not going to be any issue to the north.
Okay. All right. Anything else from Mr. Geraci?
I would just want to thank Trey for all his knowledge and appreciate you jumping in there, because, man, obviously through the years you've learned a lot with the teenies here, and they've been this has been a stressful situation for them, and they're really hoping to call this place a home. So appreciate your time as well and hearing this hearing.
Thank you.
Sure. From the teenies, anything before we adjourn?
Yeah, we've just fallen in love with Madisonville. So we just really want to be a part of the community and build into Madisonville. So
Awesome.
thank you, Gray, for your knowledge.
All right. Thanks, guys. I've had a chance to review the application materials. I'm familiar with the area. Based on that, based on the staff report and the testimony that I've heard here today, I am going to approve the application. I do want to make sure that that approval from the fire department is sort of official, and so that would be the only thing And I may include something in my decision that references that you get official approval from the fire department. But as long as that is satisfied, this should be able to move forward. And it sounds like it sounds like it is, based on what Trey has read. But I wanted to look into that a little bit more and just make sure that's all tied up. But yeah, that's any questions on any of that?
No, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. It's a long road.
I do. Trey, how do we go about doing that typically, getting that from the fire department, that continuum?
As Captain Robert Hart, I mean, if you wanted to email me, I'd suggest maybe you shoot me an email as a reminder, because I immediately after this I have other stuff to do. If you could shoot me an email reminder, I will copy Captain Hart. This is what I think it would be best. I will copy Captain Hart on it, and I will also copy Mr. Sturkey, and that way everybody will be in the same loop. Does that make sense?
Yes. Does that make
Awesome.
sense, Keys?
Thank you.
It's great.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and guys, I sympathize with how long that you guys have been waiting to do this, and so I by no means do I want to drag this out any further. So yeah, I appreciate that, Trey, and we'll try to get that fire approval moving as quickly as possible.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
We will be awesome citizens in Madisonville, I promise.
Great. Yeah. Well, Madisonville is really coming along, so I'm sure you guys will enjoy it. All right. If you have any other questions in the meantime, feel free to reach out to myself or to Trey. I'd be happy to answer any questions, or if you want like a status update on this decision, I essentially have to just like formalize my decision in like a written opinion. That usually takes like a couple weeks. And as soon as I finish it, I put it into a PDF and I email it to everybody who's in the hearing here today. So you all have a copy of it really just moments after it's complete. As soon as you have that and the fire sign off, the official fire sign off, Trey will be able to approve the permits and you can move forward.
Great.
Wonderful.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
One other thing that's noteworthy after all your waiting, I do have to explain. I'm going to be out of the office. My daughter's actually studying abroad, and my wife and I are visiting her, so I will be out of the country. I'll be returning on the Monday immediately after Thanksgiving. So if during the interim, suppose that David is able to approve this and has a decision, I can't approve the permit until there's a formal decision. So suppose that he does that during the Tuesday or Wednesday or something before Thanksgiving, I will be able to immediately approve that permit upon my return on the 28th of November. I believe that's the 28th, whatever that Monday is. So I'm just letting you all know that.
Trey, is there any, is Emily or Wes or anyone going to be helping?
Yeah, I mean, Emily will be copied on it. So you might, when you do your decision, David, if you do that prior to my return, if you wouldn't mind, giving her a heads up that she could go ahead and approve the permit. I'd appreciate that, because otherwise they'd wait another week, and the builder really strung them along for months and months.
So there'll be a woman on my decision that I will also carbon copy, named Emily Ahouse. She, in Trey's absence, should be able to help move that permit along if you guys are ready. And then, of course, when Trey's back, he can also do it.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Well, thank you all again for your time, your testimony here today. Good luck with the project. We